huge towers of masonry toppling down on thousands of upturned, screaming faces. Also, in reserve, wet streets, bottle over the head, gunshots into the trunk. Yeah, have you noticed these days our movies are all shit? It's like all they are, really, is just like people having sex with their clothes on and getting shot through the head. It's weird, you know? And you know why? It's because movies are all made by people who hate people. You know, in the sense that when you're growing up, there's two kinds of people. People who like people and people who hate people. And people who like people, they spend their childhoods like hanging out on street corners, you know, talking to, well, people. Whereas the people who hate people, they spend their childhoods locked away in attics with little Stanley knives, carving up bits of expended polystyrene to make a new hill for their train set, you know. But movie makers are the worst of the lot because they are people who hate people but pretend to be interested in them. So they make their movie, you know, I want to make my big testament to humanity, my big feeling for what humanity is, but the only humanity they hang around with is a bunch of actors that they bark orders at for a couple of weeks, you know, and then it's off to their attics, you know, with the Stanley knives and edit, you know, for months, you know. I always wanted to make a movie that was, you know, like really about people, you know. But unfortunately, I don't know any people. So I thought, you know, the next best thing I could do was at least make one that wasn't about Stanley knives.
Windsor, Ontario, the Rose City, Canada's Sun Parlor, thunderstorm capital of Canada. Harry Houdini died here. At least he died on a train traveling from Chicago to Montreal. Windsorites like to claim it was while passing through here. The one place Houdini couldn't escape. When the Queen came to Windsor, she said, "I had no idea Windsor was so big." One of her guards said, "That's Detroit, ma'am." Victoria Blossom, filmmaker. Move your finger. When I first got back to Windsor after majoring in film at art college, I didn't want to go stale. I was looking for something to work on, so I joined a film co-op called the House of Toast. And it was great, but there was the usual, a lot gets talked about, but not much gets done. And then at one of the monthly screenings of Works in Progress, I met this guy who reminded me that sometimes in the smaller, quieter cultural centers, people tend to think harder. What were you saying?
Oh, yeah, I used to be a comedian. Yeah, professional comedian in London, England, in the golden age of alternative comedy. I had an agent and everything. I used to call him up. I'd hear this voice go, "Oh, hi, wow, great to hear from you. I was just thinking about you just now. Just thinking about what an amazing, unique talent you've got. A very particular voice, you know, and it's really time we sat down and worked out a way of projecting you into the public mind so that we can make a pent-load of money. Unfortunately, there's no one in the office at the moment, so could you please speak after the tone?"
I'd seen him down at the Eclectic, which is the only hangout in town. And we arranged to meet there.
Yeah, I've done 8 movies.
8?
Yeah, oh yeah, done the whole thing. Like, you know, I've got everything worked out and everything. 8. The only trouble is, the bastards at the House of Toast won't lend me the equipment. Actually, that's a bit more of an experimental one. You probably want to start with the most accessible of them.
Everyone called him the Captain. And he was burning to make a film about his own story, and he seemed somehow on the edge, so we decided to help him out. We being me and my husband, Terry.
What do you think?
He was quite a cameraman when we met in high school. Though he's a lawyer now. He's shooting me right now. Hi, honey.
Hi, honey.
Anyway, the Captain was resistant to actually writing a script, so we thought we'd just hang out, see what happened.
What's going on?
Hi, we're here.
Who are these guys?
That's Terry, my husband, and that's John, the sound man.
But you can't come in.
You told us to come over today.
That's right. Yeah, that's right.
We've got everything. What would you like to do?
Oh, you know, actually, I've got some things inside that'll explain everything. Just hang on, wait there.
Okay. No, keep rolling.
Yeah, you see, these are like a lot of visual thoughts, you know, thoughts, pure thoughts, a lot of them. And they're, you know, a lot of the real ideas are sort of, I thought we could take a look at them, you know.
Okay, do you want to go in and watch?
I don't have a VCR.
Oh. Perhaps you could come over to our place.
Got any beer?
Sure. Cut.
Crap. Crap. That's crap. That's crap.
Smile.
Oh, nice place you got here. Crap.
One or two?
Two, please, if that's all right.
Did you poke him?
No, I didn't.
Crap.
Pardon?
That's crap. Oh, that stuff, yeah. Crap. What's your favourite movie?
Don't really have one, I'm afraid.
Thought you liked movies. Because you were shooting them with the camera before. It's all right, looked quite good at it. I thought, you know, you must have liked movies at one point.
Yeah, I suppose I did at one point.
Goodbye, cruel world. Goodbye, cruel world. Etc. No, fuck it. See what I mean? It looks crap, doesn't it? Like all the lighting's crap. You know, I can just imagine all the House of Toast people sitting around going, "Oh, crappy lighting." You know, I mean, some suicide note that is.
Is that what this is about? A suicide note?
No, it's just a meaningless grab for attention. Goodbye, cruel world, etc.
It's your story. It's how you choose to tell it.
Yeah, but it's crap, innit? Crap, 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 crap. Oh, that's crap. Crap, 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 crap.
Terry just likes Krista Berg. Hey, what about this one?
He's a bit weird, isn't he?
We could all use a little bit of that.
To your thoughts. These are the tapes that I made over the years, you know, just like jotting down ideas, you know, kind of things that most filmmakers leave unsaid. What you could call them is like pure thoughts. Pure thoughts! Yeah, pure thoughts. Stand them up that way, stand them up that way, you can put them in a VCR, if you've got one. I don't have a VCR. So, where did it all begin for me? The 50s. Nah, fuck it. Ah, right, yeah, all right, yeah. I used to be a superhero.
Camera roll 1, sound roll 1, scene 10, take 1.
Yeah, I used to be a superhero. Don't ask me who, because obviously my efficiency as a crime fighter relies on my identity being kept a secret. And anyway, I wasn't a very good one. You know, I was young for the job, 8. And I didn't have any superpowers, except I was a bit precocious at chess. So, I reckon that the best thing to do is just like stick my chest out and try and make like Batman. But now Batman, although he had no superpowers, was not just a blousy amateur. He didn't just bluff his way through to his own TV series and 2 of his own comics for 50 years. No. Hard graft is what got him where he got. Like, first of all, he had his parents shot by muggers. Like, he was orphaned in front of his very eyes by criminals, and that is what gave him like the steely determination to fight crime, which is such an essential if you're going to be a superhero. Otherwise, you're out there, it's a rainy night, you think, fuck it, I'll go home. Right? Also, he had about 1 million gadgets, crime-fighting gadgets, that used to cram into this really svelte, really Carnaby Street little belt that he had, and he was super fit, bounding about the place, and oh, he was a genius as well, intellectually speaking. Well, I thought I could muddle through on the genius bit, but the rest of it presented problems. You see, I didn't really think it was in the spirit to hire a hitman for my mother. But I was lucky there because my dad was not around. I never used to see my dad at all. And so it was like the easiest thing in the world to have him, in my imagination, garroted in Venezuela by some horrible international criminal syndicate, Oh, God, yeah. I used to have this thing where I would be lying in bed at night and this being used to float into my room with like robes on and lights floating around his head and deep-set glowing eyes. And he'd come to the end of my bed, he'd go, "You have been chosen, O wise before your years one, to fight evil in all its forms throughout the universe and be a member of our eternal brotherhood, even beyond the veils of death. I would prevaricate for a bit. I'd go, I don't know. What about my homework? And he would tell me how my old man had been murdered by this criminal syndicate, and I would leap out of bed full of steely determination and take the vow there and then in my bloody pajamas. And then sometimes he would tell me how my old man had actually been leading the criminal syndicate. Would I like to join to atone for his sins? And I'd do that as well. I just wanted to join, really, The real stumbling block, really, in the end, was gadgets. I mean, I don't know whether you realise this, but Batman's secret identity is Bruce Wayne. Oh, shit, there it's out. Anyway, Bruce Wayne is a multi-millionaire. This turns out to be just as well, because a bat plane, a bat copter, a bat submarine, a bat forensic laboratory, they all cost money. Now, I had a fish slice that I borrowed from my mother's kitchen. And in this way, I became Captain Fish Slice. Sort of not a very impressive name, really. Who dares challenge Thor the Magnificent? Captain Fish Slice. What? Speak up, puny mortal. Captain Fish Slice. Oh, fuck. Yeah, looking back, I think I was very fortunate, actually, about the advent, at about that time, 1963, of Mersey Mania. I mean, working on the principle that the best place to hide a nut is in a fruitcake. I'm very lucky that around that time the entire world went insane for a bunch of essentially sort of cheerful fellows in identical dapper suits singing songs about being popular at school. It's weird, wasn't it? I mean, it's like they're all treated like some revolutionary force, Wayne Fontana and the Mind Benders and Jerry and the Pacemakers. Revolutionary. Yeah, the only thing I remember still with any kind of affection from that period is my little Dansette, my little Woolworths record player. I loved it. It was atrocious. It was so bad, this machine. You used to have to put a threepenny piece on it in order that the needle didn't skid across the records, But, I mean, it did. It helped me get over all kinds of minor privations, all the little tragedies of being young, like having to wear short trousers until I was 13 and having to deal with the school bullies, like me, with those guys. And some nights my parents wouldn't let me play my little record player, so I would sit in the next room to them and just sit there and turn it on and watch the turntable going round and round and round and round for hours on end. I used to fucking hypnotise myself with it. I used to sit there and I think one day something out of the sky is going to come down onto this machine, you know, and it's going to be incredible. It's going to be like those old Jack Kirby comics or something, you know, those huge figures with the rigid faces, so rigid and so powerful that when they open their mouths you could see like all this black lightning playing inside their mouths and in their eyes, and from their hands would come these floods of power, like these beautiful untrammeled floods of beautiful blazing power. Yeah! That's what I used to think the rock stars of the future were going to be like. Oh. Except in sound. I used to have like this thing of the sound of an electric organ floating up in the sky way over the city. And then suddenly swooping down and screaming and howling through the streets, you know, with the actual edge of this sound so raw and so horrible and piercing would it be would be tearing through the dark black concrete of the buildings, huge towers of masonry toppling down on thousands of upturned screaming faces. Ah! That is what I thought the rock stars of the future were going to be like, you know? And there's a reason for that too. It nearly happened, you know. Yeah, it sounds. I mean, if you think of it this way, if you think of like history as a set of rituals, invocation rituals. That's it.
What kind of rituals?
What?
What kind of rituals?
What do you mean?
No, not what I mean. What do you mean? History is a set of rituals. What kind of rituals?
No. It doesn't work like that. No. You see, I can't make it up. The answers come when they come, you know. Videos, you know, thoughts. This is what's on there, like pure thoughts. History is a set of rituals. I'll give you an example. Germany after the First World War, the Weimar Republic. Okay, everything was in pieces. The whole society was in bits. So what they had to do was they had to build up this whole new ritual. Just like in a ritual, everyone takes on roles. Roles like we are the government and you are the poor. All right? I mean, now, always it's the same, but the poor people always outnumber the government by thousands to one. Could probably get more guns and things like that, but no, they always wander around, acting according to the pre-planned plan of action for poor people, you know, getting pushed against walls by policemen, running out of money on Friday afternoons and all this kind of stuff. And they do that because these roles, no matter how uncomfortable, always protect them from the unknown. You see, all they know is a few things that they don't want, like plagues or foreigners coming in, and a few things that they can't do, like fly. And on the basis of this, they make all these ad hoc decisions, mutual understandings, hoping that some weird, amazing thing will get summoned up in amongst all of them, a society or something, you know. Anyway, what they got was Hitler. A prize every time. All of these rituals had all ended in like evil and then weakness, you know, and it was becoming predictable. But all of them, you see, had been like sensible rituals, you know, like fairly well made plans, fairly well carried out, based on existing models. And what rock music tried to be was like the world's first, in history, non-sensible rituals, where instead of doing something for a fairly good reason, you did it for the wrong reason entirely, or even better, no reason at all, you know, and God help the next few years. I've always wanted to do something like that, you know, like something like, excuse me, mate, have you got the time? Oh, no, mate, sorry. Sorry's not enough! Ah! Step. Anyway, enough about my ambitions. Purposeless extreme activity is what makes a lot of it seem ridiculous in hindsight. But, you know, at the time it didn't matter how stupid anything was because even people who weren't interested in it still paid attention, you know. Everyone understood there was something mutual, there was a shared sense of impending, you know, whatever. I mean, in those days, the giant looked into Jack's eyes and he thought he saw the end. I think we need something dramatic there. Volcano. Nazis melted by Covenant. Exploding helicopter. remember when people thought Paul McCartney was dead? See, in those days, people were quite ill about the Beatles, you know, and they discovered that if you played the last section of Sergeant Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band backwards, you can like distinctly hear this voice reciting some obscure railway timetable or something, right? So then the thing came to be to listen to all the Beatles records backwards, like hold their album sleeves up to mirrors, you know, try and soak out the mysterious signals that the boys had left behind, which turned out to say that Paul McCartney was dead. I mean, makes perfect psychological sense, doesn't it? I mean, I think if Mr. McCartney had been aced in some bizarre million-to-one shed-building incident, the first thing the remaining mop tops would have done is to work out a way of leaking the information in such a way that only those people who are stupid enough to listen to their records backwards could ever possibly hope to understand. I mean, I think there's a whole wish fulfillment thing there, you know? Like, all these people believe that, you know, since we know and love, indeed are obsessed by the Beatles so much, they must in some dim, mysterious way be aware of us and want to, like, communicate with us, you know? Well, I had a friend who took all this one step further. His name was Roger Harris. And he listened to his entire record collection backwards, and he became convinced that the ultimate spinach was speaking to him. But this was different. This was him personally, right? He actually came to believe that this now forgotten psychedelic group, one day when they were tripping out in their home of Boston, Massachusetts, had set up this involuntary psychic link with him, a sort of cosmic telephone line, to the extent that he believed this communication was two-way, to the extent that he came to believe that he had inspired their best songs, to the degree that when their third LP came out and it was no good, he wrote them a letter apologising. He said, I'm sorry, but I had exams at the time. Yeah, I learned later that the scientific definition of psychosis is this, is that you actually lose track of the border between yourself and everything else. Like, you don't know what's you, and you don't know what's everything else. Now, it sounds like a simple malfunction, but actually it's kind of complicated. For example, it means that if you really, really, really want something to happen, it becomes very hard to understand that it hasn't, because, you know, if the dream is in you, why isn't it in everything else, you know? And conversely, it means that if something really terrible happens around you, then it becomes very hard to understand that you didn't cause it, you know? So it can lead to some terrific mental snarl-ups, as you can imagine. Except I have to say, in the 60s, it was kind of a help, you know, particularly if you were in a band, which me and Roger were, you know. Oh, like, we were a great band. I mean, like, we had such an amazing stage act. We made the Tremolos look like the Bonzo Dog Doodah bands, you know. I mean, it was great. We used to do, like, substitutes on kazoos, you know, and then at the end of it, we'd smash our kazoos. And we used to do, With God on Our Side, we used to do. That was great. That was a number I did my free-form guitar freak out, which was really good, except perhaps a little bit long, like an hour and a half, you know. When we were rehearsing, the band would all go out to lunch and they'd come back and I'd still be there on the same notes. Oh, God! And we used to do Wild Thing, I remember. That was great because we had this singer who had a voice like that and a range of half a tone. Right, and he always wanted to sound like Captain Beefheart, who's now sort of sadly forgotten, but he had this big raspy voice like that. So this kid always wanted to sound like him. So I remember it was the first gig that we ever... No, it's the last gig, actually. No, it was both. Now I think about it. Anyway, so this particular gig, right, we are at the front of the stage doing the chords. And all this. And this kid is lurching about at the back of the stage with a can of beer doing his time-honoured, psychotic and interesting number, so beloved of rock singers through the ages, you know. Anyway, so we're doing the chords and he stumbles down to the microphone, he takes a swig of his beer and he goes, "Whoa!" And he threw up. A Mars bar and 2 tabs of acid dripping off the microphone. God, the 60s, you know, when people really used to care. Roger Harris, eh? You know, I haven't thought about Roger in years. He's dead now. No, he's not. Yeah, he is, yeah. No, he's not. Yes, he is. No, he's not. Yes, he is. No, he's not. Yes, he is. No, he's not. Oh, God, I remember, actually, his dad was a vicar. I remember that because I remember when we were rehearsing and we got bored, we'd all run around the house drawing upside-down crosses on the wall. Actually, Victoria, can you give me a hand with this? Please, thanks.
Terry, could you give us a hand?
Actually, his dad was one of those monsters of the late 1960s. A liberal vicar. He used to do a lot of media appearances and stuff, you know, talking about how everyone should be a lot nicer to each other. And he had this theory that he used to spout a lot about how censorship was bad because anyone should be allowed to read any book that they want to because no one's ever influenced by any book that they ever read. Which, if you think about it, it's not a bad thing to say, but I mean, there is a little kernel of bullshit in it, isn't there, you know? And, of course, poor old Roger, with his illness, anyone spouted any bullshit around him, it was as if he'd invented it himself. You know, like it invaded his head. So, anyway, whatever the reason was, it's like he embarked on this really heavy campaign to get his dad to recant this saying that anyone should be allowed to read any book. And what he did was he started reading books and becoming exaggeratedly influenced by them, you know? Like, he read Graham Greene and became a Catholic. He read Chaim Potok and became Jewish. Stephen King he read. One time I remember his parents went away for the weekend. And they got home and they discovered in the kitchen Roger Harris stood there in nothing but a loincloth. Anyway, they said, how was your weekend, Roger? He says, it was all right. He says, read Lord of the Flies, went to a party, ate Nigel Smiggins. Oh, yes, dear, that's nice, they said, determined to be unfazed. They had guts, Roger's parents did, actually. I have to say that for them. Anyway, but he got them, all the same. How he got them was with the brothers Karamazov, you know. He left it accidentally on purpose around the hallway of his house, you know, and his dad comes in, he sees the book, he goes, oh, God, what's Roger reading now? And flips to the back, he says, Dostoevsky's searing novel of parricide. And he goes, parricide, what's that? What's parricide? And he looks it up in the dictionary, and of course it means killing your father. Well, that finally cracked him. He runs down to the police station. The constable there, I understand, was most unsympathetic. He says, let's get this straight, Reverend Harris. Your son is reading a long-winded Russian novel. Hardly a capital offence now, is it? But, to give him his due, another father might have gone home and said to his son, you were right, son, all along. I am a horrible crypto-fascist swine. But not the Reverend Harris, he was made of sterner stuff. He slammed his foot down on the old goodwill pedal. And he says to his son, he says, look, he says, why don't you come and give a talk to the local church auxiliary, which is this extremely conservative bunch of old folks that used to hang around his dad's church, right? He says, come and give a talk to him about anything you want. Roger says, anything? He says, yeah, anything you want. This is the late 1960s, right, when issues were still controversial. And I was there, the halcyon night that Roger gave his talk. I'll never forget it. He gets up in front of all these old folks, and he's wearing like a flowered shirt and bell-bottom trousers. He's got long hair, and he says, ladies and gentlemen, he says, I would like to see a return to traditional British values and practices. Anyway, he continues. After a sigh of relief goes around the room, he says, traditional British values and practices like painting ourselves blue and running up and down the hills, hitting Italians in brass skirts. Right? Traditional British values and practices like setting fire to foreigners in wicker baskets. He says, in fact, ladies and gentlemen, let's get back to the old ways. That's what I advise, you know? And he starts tearing at his clothes. Forget this Mediterranean Johnny-come-lately god. Let's get back to the old ways, dancing around the oak tree. I've got some mistletoe. Let's get necking. Well, by this time, he's like down to his underpants. He cries out, I only say this, ladies and gentlemen, because I happen to be a minor cultic deity. Anyway, then his mother runs out onto the stage, throws a blanket over him, and they carry him off. I went up to him after. I thought it was brilliant. I said, Roger, that was incredible. It was great, particularly that gag about being a minor Celtic deity. And he turns to me and he goes, what do you mean, gag, mortal? That was the trouble with Roger, you see. You know, like he'd make a joke and then a second later, he'd forget that he made it as a joke, you know? He'd think it was one of his deepest convictions. Or on the other hand, he'd say something he really meant and then a moment later just laugh it off. He just had no rock to stand on. But you know, in fairness to Roger, I have to say that none of us actually know what the border is between ourselves and everything else. It's just that it seems with the rest of us, we just have this bizarre built-in mechanism that makes us not bloody care that we don't, you know? I don't think Roger ever figured that out. As time went on, I noticed he became quite angry, bitter, and paranoid. For example, we had this mutual friend called Jim Morrison, right? Who actually wasted having the sexiest name in the universe at that point by being a complete bloody pinhead. He was a total jerk, he really was. Actually, we only used to hang around with Jim really because he'd inherited some money, so he was rich, you know. Anyway, pay attention. But the thing is with Jim was that he idolized Roger, you know? But he got into this strange habit of coming up and telling him specious lies in order that he could take this weird pleasure in, like, Roger exposing him. Like, he'd come up and he'd go, ooh, you know, like, I was playing the guitar last night, you know, and all of a sudden I just sort of zenned into the string and I could suddenly play, like, really fast, like Alvin Lee or something. And Roger would go, no, you bloody didn't, you horrible little dimpled-fingered, three-left-handed incompetent twerp. And Jim would go, ooh, you really sussed me out there. It was like every time it was the same thing. You really... Like he'd come up and he'd go, I was smoking this dope last night, you know, and all of a sudden I felt like I was this unconscious mote floating on the waves of the universe, and I could see like Confucius and Jesus, you know, smoking dope and playing cribbage on this cloud. And Roger would go, no, you bloody didn't, you horrible little miserable suburban drop of squalid dog snot, you anal retentive jerk, you didn't at all. And Jim would go, you really sussed me out there. Well, I mean, sometimes he'd do it 3 times in a bloody day, you know. So, anyway, what happened was, it must have been the summer of 69 or 70, Roger's girlfriend got into the University of Salford near Manchester, and all of us went up to stay in her hall of residence, right? A lot of us, like Roger and me and Jim Morrison and Roger's girlfriend, you know, we're all staying like in one little room, you know, that sort of 60s thing, you know, when you're sort of in your late teens, early 20s, and it was pretty horrible because we had to sneak into the hall of residence every night and all that kind of stuff, and the laundry got difficult and all of that, and I seem to be getting the trajectory wrong. But anyway, the whole climax to our having an evil time that summer and fall was Halloween. Now, there's a place near Manchester called Alderley Edge, which is like this step in the Cheshire Plain. Like Cheshire Plain goes along flat, and it goes like that, and then it goes along again. And the bit where it goes like that is Alderley Edge, and there's some legends associated with it. So, of course, 1969-70, Halloween, ancient turn of the pagan year, bloody places like Grand Central Station. It's like out in the country, but it's packed with pixies from Birmingham and like ancient pagans from Aberdeen and all these preposterous ninnies with flutes, you know. Like you overhear these arguments like, oh, what are you doing? Our ancient cult has been celebrating the mystical turn of the year at this spot since time immemorial. Since before the bloody dawn of time we've been coming here. Oh yeah, before the dawn of time, where the bloody hell were you last year then? Oh, well, it was raining, wasn't it? You know, stuff like that, right? So, anyway, to get to Alderley Edge, you've got to go up this hill. And at the bottom of the hill is a pub. So we stopped in the pub. It's called The Wizard. And we're in The Wizard, and all of a sudden this guy comes up to us in amongst this crowd of weirdos, and he must have been like 21 years old, going on 4,000. He's got this ash grey complexion, these huge bags under his sunken eyes, and he comes up and he goes, I suppose you do realise that I worship gods far more ancient than anything you can conceive of in your petit bourgeois ideological systems. And Roger turns to him and he goes, well, then I suppose you'll be glad I'm back. He stares at him with those burning eyes that he could do every now and then. Well, at the time, we just thought, what a brilliant response, you know. So we're like slapping him on the back going, good for you, Roger. Well done. And then we look at him again, you know, and he's gone. We can sense he's gone. It's bloody minor Celtic deity time again. So we go up to the edge, and as we get there, there's this place there called Castle Rock, which is like this short 50-foot cliff. And we're standing on Castle Rock, and all of a sudden, Roger turns to Jim and he says, you know, Jim, with my powers as a minor Celtic deity, I can give you the gift of flight. I'll say that again because it's important. The gift of flight, right? And Jim, who I think senses already that no good is going to come of this, goes, oh, that's really nice of you, Roger. Yeah. And Roger goes, well, in fact, now I think about it, poof, there you go. You can fly. Congratulations, Jim. Jim goes, thanks a lot. In fact, says Roger, why don't you step off Castle Rock now and just do a few figure eights, you know, just float around, show them really what it's all about. And Jim says, no, I think that'd be a bit of an ego trip, don't you? And Roger says, you don't believe me, do you? You don't believe me that I have given you the gift of flight? Yeah, I do. No, you don't. 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 Ooh, you really sussed me out there. Well, it was like the fourth time that day he'd said it. So Roger picks up this rock and he goes smack right in Jim's forehead. Boing! Jim falls off Castle Rock. Turns out Roger was lying, in fact. Jim couldn't fly. Thunk, he lands at the bottom. I mean, he wasn't dead, but he was never as friendly again. Anyway, after that, everything started to fall apart, you know. Me and Roger moved back down south and we tried to start up this angry alternative magazine that was going to tear the lid off Western civilization and pour all the contents out all over the floor, and it was going to be called Probe. Terrible name. And we actually did get out the first issue, you know. It was rubbish. It was 32 pages long, and in the middle was the front cover because it was experimental, right? And there was another 16 pages of Roger being rude about his mother and 15 pages of his girlfriend writing this tone poem about Dawn over Chipping Sudbury. We never even did get out the second issue because he went insane. When I first realised he was going totally nuts, he'd always been strange, but I first realised he was going totally nuts when he elected a tree to the editorial board. I tried to talk him out of it, but of course I got outvoted at the first meeting, you know. And I remember he had this whole political thing there. He wanted this second issue to be the first magazine in history to start making historical reparations on behalf of the magazine industry to trees. And it was going to be printed on human skin. He even had the material mapped out for this second issue. It was going to be entirely composed of this ancient Welsh poem called the Cadgoddiw, or the Battle of the Trees, which goes, I have been the narrow blade of a sword. I will believe it when it appears. I have been a drop in the air. I have been a star in the sky. I have been a word in a book. I have been a book for a while. I was the light in a lantern for a year and a half, and so on, except with his own modern interpolations, like I used to be an electric lawnmower and things like that. He said this poem is about the birth of language. But anyway, we never did get the issue out because he went completely insane. I remember the night he actually cracked up, he spent £150. It's a lot of money in those days on long-distance telephone bills, as he was trying to phone up his favourite rock icon to ask him what to do about the end of the world. In the end, he got the answer, I'm sorry, Mr. Manson can't come to the phone right now. And he snapped. And that night was the night I realised that the revolution was not going to happen in the way they said it was, because these people were too weak. The first years of the 70s were full of disappointment. I came to Windsor to live. I had some aunts here. I got depressed. And I actually blamed rock stars. For a while, I entertained the notion of killing a few of them just to kind of wake everybody up, you know. I got even more depressed. I got so depressed they put me in a lunatic asylum. That cheered me up.
8th floor. Yeah, I remember my therapist had this very studied, cold air of professional indifference, you know, and he says to me, so why do you blame rock stars for your unhappiness, you know? I said, why? I says, well, all right, take Dylan, right? You know that song of his, Just Like a Woman? I mean, really morbid, banal chord changes, really nasty, spiteful lyrics, really showing once and for all what a nasty, unctuous, backstabbing, backbiting, half-educated, petit bourgeois, small-town psychological snub the man really was. Yet you mention that song to any aging social worker and their eyes will go misty, right? The ghost of electricity howls in the bones of her face. You know that line? It's one of his most famous. It's from Visions of Joanna. Doesn't mean a fucking thing. People have spent years trying to work out that line because they know it doesn't mean anything, right? Because we were fortunate in finding Dylan to have a poet who forgot what he was writing about from one verse to the next. You know, he was so, like, obsessed with a simple rhyme that meaning just went out the window, you know? Anyway, I'm telling him all this stuff, and I look across his desk, I'll notice that he's gone all kind of white and tense, and he's like snapping his pencils with his fingers, and he goes, you can't say that about Bob Dylan. He's my mentor. Shocked me. Yeah, it scared me. It made me realize how unpopular I must be most of the time.
There you go. We thought the material's so good, we'd like to make it a little more presented.
Power supply.
Oh. Have you seen Swimming to Cambodia?
Yeah?
Like that. We'd add simple visual reinforcements.
Mm-hmm.
It'd still be your story, but, well, we'd kind of like to know what we're dealing with.
What, you mean like, I don't know, what, have something written down or something?
Yes.
Sort of nail it to the floor a bit.
Yeah, it is my money, and Terry's.
Yeah, sure, yeah.
Ah, great.
All right.
Could you shake hands again?
What?
For coverage. It makes things easier to cut. It's just a film thing.
Well, do you want it authentic or crap?
Got my viewfinder, got my film stock. Thanks, honey. I'll never forget this.
I was a little miffed to be retired as cameraman, as all the guys with baggy shorts and goatee beards from the House of Toast co-op came in. But Victoria, I don't know. She had to do it. She was determined.
So, how's it look?
I spent the last few hours of the 1970s miles and miles and miles away from civilization near Bolton in Lancashire. And I remember that night I was really cold and really miserable sitting in my grubby little bed-sitting apartment there. I was so cold and so miserable, I thought of sharpening the butter and stabbing myself with it. Anyway, so I was sat there and I was getting into like this long philosophical discursive look back at the 1970s and my part in the advancement of culture during that period, which is always a bad sign. So you see, look, I don't know whether you remember, but around about 1973, this whole set of people started to disappear off the scene. People like the guy with a big black beard that used to turn up at parties with a mandolin in a bashed-up case, hoping someone would ask him to play it, you know, like Grateful Dead fans, you know. Oh, I can play Ripple on the tambourine, that sort of person, and all those girls with mirrors on their dresses. And anyway, what happened was you suddenly stopped getting into conversations sort of about how Carl Gustav Jung might have had a prophetic vision of the Beatles, you know. And the scene was full of rugby players in Aladdin-sane makeup talking about the gear change on their new Simcas. Like, suddenly everyone was just into Led Zeppelin, table football, and projectile vomit. So, What happened was all the purists, like, moved out of town. They loaded up their dad's station wagons that they borrowed for the day with half-hundredweight bags of chickpeas and fabulous furry Freak Brothers comics and their alternative technology handbooks, and they drove to, like, the hills north of Oldham or the moors beyond the Berry, you know, to these tiny, obscure, wind-swept little towns in this area here, you know. Places like so bleak and miserable that it's like front-page news in the newspapers if the wind stops. Places so bleak and so grey that you have to take acid so you can remember what colours are. Sorry about that. Won't do it again. Anyway, so that's where they all went. It's true, and they've been there for 20 years. The lost tribe of Dylan. Yeah, I was part of that migration, you know. I mean, I don't know, I suppose it's not a bad place, the rents are cheap, but trouble is you can't ever get out once you're there, you know. So, and the only cultural activity in the neighbourhood is this local alternative bookshop called Bilbo's Underpants. That's not the real name, actually. It's just people started calling it Bilbo's Underpants, and Bilbo's Underpants stuck. If you'll pardon the iconoclasm, I mean the name stuck to the shop. But anyway, this shop is run by these three really miserable, self-righteous guys who stand around all day talking about creating viable alternatives, when in fact they make their money through selling Watership Down to vicars' wives from Ratcliffe and Dashiell Hammett books to skinheads from the Further Education College up the road. Three more crushing bores you could go a long way in order to meet. Like, one of them is really, really fat, and he's called Fat Packer for some reason, and the other two are really, really thin. Ray and Pat Smudgley, their names are. It's funny. Hippies, I've found, are always either overweight or underweight. It's a weird thing. Oh, you know, this shop used to be even worse in the old days. They used to have this hippie with pimples working there that used to pick on you if you bought the wrong book. Like, he'd go, "You do realise this book is a bit of crypto-fascist, elitist, revisionist ephemera issued to bolster the misplaced and crumbling confidence in imperialism as it exists within the ideological systems of the American bourgeoisie. Eh? Thought of that, have you? Have you? And you'd be like staring down at this copy of Earl Stanley Gardner's The Case of the Separated Parrot that you'd absent-mindedly picked up out of the second-hand bin, and you'd go, well, I don't know till I've read it, do I? And he'd go, "A liberal is a Nazi in hush puppies. 25 pence, please. Now crawl out of this shop." He was horrible. In the end, he had to leave because people kept dropping Solzhenitsyn books on his head. Anyway, so this particular night, it so happens that I've got 3 pairs of nylon socks for Christmas, and this means that I don't have to go to the laundromat until after my unemployment check comes, which means in turn I have 75 pence to play around with. So, whoo, the town is mine. But the only thing going on in town this night is a New Year's Eve party, which has been organised by this bloody bookshop, you know. Now, I can go there, I know. I know it'll be terrible, right? It'll be in a huge, freezing cold church hall. There'll be like 8 people there. 5 of them will be sensitive, bad folk guitarists who are all itching to play. And of the other 3, I don't know, 2 of them will be the local radical feminist collective, and the 3rd will be like that bloody vicar with his practised Irish twinkle and his bottle of Glenmorangie. Anyway, I get there, and it turns out, of course, my dark prophecies are true. Ray and Fat Packer from the bookshop are halfway through their set, and they're doing their whining, miserable, strung-out rendition of some old, forgotten Rolling Stones song called Sweet Lady Jane that Ray always stops in the middle of to dedicate to one of his ex-girlfriends, whom he compares to a minor character from Lord of the Rings, although I happen to know that she ran off with a set of his stereo headphones once. And I know that from there, they're going to barrel straight through to their Flaccid Rhythm and Blues medley. I mean, this set, I've seen them do it about 400 times now. And it's exactly the same every time. And every time they come up to me after and they go, "Oh, what do you think of the set, man? It's a shame the audience wasn't more receptive because we didn't get to do the encore." Like, I've never seen the encore, you know? Once experimentally, I started clapping to see if anything would happen. People just turned and shushed me. Oh, it's awful, me. Now, this is the kind of night, though, that in the old days, before I had my therapy, I'd have a kind of macabre fun at. Because what I used to do before I had my therapy was I just used to criticize people. whenever I met them. Just start going for them, saying, you know, you are completely intellectually, ideologically, spiritually, and philosophically out to lunch. You know, you are wrong about everything. You're just making life miserable for yourself and everybody else. It's kind of fun, really. And what's amazing, you know, if you do that, is how seldom you're wrong. I mean, all right, I was a bit tough on a couple of babies, but I mean, you get the picture, you know, just go around criticizing people, radiating criticism, and you have a kind of macabre fun. But since my therapy, I can't do that anymore. I don't know, something holds me back. When I'm with people now, they just kind of frighten me a bit, you know, I just want to hide, you know. So I back out the church hall and I go back across the road feeling really depressed. I think maybe I'll come back to the party in a bit for the door prizes, see if I've won one. You know, there's a door prize for a few shop-soiled Kurt Vonnegut books, that kind of thing. And I'm sitting there in the pub, and all of a sudden, all these bloody people come in that I didn't expect to see there at all. They've all like got mohawks on and armpit rings and sort of yellow polka dot kilts and arrows through their head and just weird stuff, you know. And I recognise them. It's the local New Wave contingent from the Further Education College up the road. And the closest one to me I recognise is a guy I know. He's a guy called Henry. He teaches art at the Further Education College up the road, you know. He's like always trying to keep in with the kids. He's 35. He's got Johnny Rotten's autograph. Poor lonely bastard. So I say to him, I say, hey Henry, I say, what are all these post-New Wave, sub-post-modernist, fringe, pre-New Order business studies students doing at a wake for Donovan's reputation? And he tells me that there is this special guest band on at the party across the road. And I inquire around the pub, turns out to be true. There is indeed, appearing at a humble little dump-like New Year's Eve party, a fully fledged, fully professional rock band with a recording contract and everything. Amazingly enough, I've even heard of them. It's a band called Trevor and the Golden Gates of Despair. With mounting excitement, I leave the pub, I go across the road, and it's amazing, the whole church hall looks different. There's a big banner over the doorway with the name of the band on it, you know, and there's a truck parked outside with the name of the band stenciled on the side. There's all this equipment being unloaded. There's guys selling programs, and they've got these recent reviews of the band, like blown up and stuck on the walls, you know, so that you can like read these reviews from a distance, you know, or great happy gangs if you can all stand around and recite these reviews out loud in unison, you know. And so I go over and I check one out, and it turns out that the New Musical Express of October the 17th, 1979 had this to say. Trevor and the Golden Gates of Despair play Dadaist rockabilly with a difference. They redefine, repossess, reprocess, and restructure the decorative, non-functional mannerisms of traditional gloom rock. They rediscover the toy despair of Jim Morrison in angular oral puns. With one hammer blow of joyous, baroque, wittily uninventive 12-bar, they speak what Nietzsche would have spake if he had any pop sense. The clash of the prose, the everyday experience of the post-New Wave, sub-post-modernist fringe, pre-New Order business studies students' world, but Trevor and the Golden Gates of Despair are the condensed experience. They are the truth about your lives, or not. Well, I'm standing there and I'm thinking, wow, whatever happened to a toe-tapping blues chaser with nice harmonies and a message? And I hear this voice behind me go, right, where's the chicks? And I turn around and it's the bloody roadies. Something's never changed. And I go into church hall anyway, and it's great. It's all different, you know. There's like roadies everywhere barking into walkie-talkies, you know, and there's all these stacks and stacks of amplifiers going up, and lights are being rigged, and all this scaffolding being erected, you know, and there's two road managers on stage beating up this sensitive bad folk guitarist halfway through his rendition of Alice's Restaurant because they want to set up, you know. And all the hippies are standing around looking sort of sheepish and outmoded, you know, looking like Aztecs in Spain, if you know what I mean. Oh yeah, they're building this whole false stage. Amazing. And at the back of this false stage, they erect a 12-foot-high set of golden gates. The feeling around the room, just the sheer raw excitement is palpable. Finally, Trevor and the Golden Gates of Despair take the stage. And the Golden Gates of Despair turn out to be this art student on a souped-up stylophone. And Trevor is this guy in white face makeup who shouts out this poetry in the same tone of voice as the guy who shouts out scores on darts on the television. Like, 120! Smash the system! and they go into their first number, which is a samba, speed notch 3, fact fans, in which the art student plays what sounds to me like Let's Dance without the chord changes, and Trevor shouts out this poetry. I live a plastic life! I've got a plastic girlfriend! I live in a plastic house with a plastic mother! I love swear words! A friend of mine tried to smash the system! They got him! I would have helped them get him, but I was away on holiday at the time! It's in Leon. And Leon, you know, does his one finger solo, and this number goes on and on and on. 20 bloody minutes it goes on for. And then Trevor stops and he introduces his new hit single, which is called The Fastidious Hamster Gets on the TV. And in this one, the art student plays, well, it sounds to me like the theme tune from Sports Nights with Coleman at quarter speed, but I don't know. Who knows? They may say it's Wagner. It goes boom, 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 boom. And Trevor shouts out his new poem, which goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I am product. You are consumer. That's it. That's all the lyrics. Just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I am product. You are consumer. 20 more minutes slide by. And after that, I start to look around the auditorium. See how Trevor and the Golden Gates of Despair are going down. Like a turd in a punch bowl. Nobody likes them one bit. It's like Pat Smudsley is at the back of the auditorium, absent-mindedly picking the fungus off the bingo prize. All the radical feminists have got into this really heavy dominoes tournament, and the sensitive bad folk guitarists are all stroking their beards expectantly and tuning up loudly because they know that this act is doomed and they're going to get the chance to swarm onto the stage again, you know. Anyway, the flashpoint to all of this comes when the vicar, who has had his share of whiskey by this point, shouts out, I hope you lot can do Auld Lang Syne, burn you do your own stuff. And Trevor swings round on him and he glares at him and he goes, shut up, you stupid vicar, he quips wittily. None of you miserable knobheads flocked there at the door have got the bloody sheer guts to get up and assault this horrible, vicious, pointless, nefarious society in the way that I do. Sure, it's boring, sure, it's crap, but at least I'm getting paid for it. You're all standing there wasting your bloody time. Anyway, the sensitive bad folk guitarist who had his fingers broken for playing Alice's restaurant summons up the courage to shout out, I bet you can't play Universal Soldier. Trevor turns on him and he goes, nor can bloody you after what my roadies did to you. See? See how I laugh at your pain? See how I snicker at your affliction? See how I giggle at your physical agony? See how I piss on your notions of good taste? To me, bad taste is freedom. Good taste is all one with the inhuman strictures of your revolting society. Now hear this. Tonight is the end of an era. From this night on, all rock stars will openly and publicly confess their contempt and righteous hatred for their audiences. Your cozy bourgeois ideological systems lie shattered at your feet. It is night at the golden gates of despair. As he's talking, his neck's all twisted up with hatred. His eyes are bulging with vituperation. His makeup's all streaky with the sweat and everything. It makes his face look inhuman and revolting and idiotic and pointless and repetitive, nasty. Slowly, I'm getting to like him. I mean, you know, he does have style, you know, of a sort. So I think, encourage him. So I shout out,
Right on, Trevor. You tell them.
And he turns and he looks at me. I think, wow, he's looking at me. I mean, it's ridiculous, I know. You know, at my age, with my maturity of vision, being a savage iconoclast and the whole bit, you know, but he's actually a guy on stage looking at my face. It's only the second time. Yeah, once one of the Mothers of Invention waved to me from the bandbus. This is only the second time that any rock star of any magnitude has ever looked at my features, so I'm excited, right? But this passes through my head in just an instant, because the next moment he says to me, he says, "You! I remember you! You dropped the entire Gulag archipelago on my head!" For the first time in my life, I was gobsmacked. I didn't know what to say. Trevor was the hippie with pimples that used to work in the bookshop. Next thing I remember, I'm walking home. I'm so crushed and humiliated, I'm like fighting back the tears. I mean, I know the guy's a jerk. I remember him from when he used to live around here, you know? It was like an angry flubber merchant, you know? He's the kind of guy that when he came into a pub and started talking politics, you'd kind of discreetly put your hand over your beer, you know? Like Trotskyism. I mean, he's just like awful fellow. And then I think of the thrill I got as he was looking at me from the stage, and I think, it doesn't compute, doesn't make sense, you know? I mean, I think that was a night, you know, that I actually realized that famous people hadn't been famous all along, that they'd started off as obscure, possibly quite lonesome people who were like really, really determined to get famous, and so they bought like a typewriter or a guitar and kind of practiced. So by the time I got home that night, I was really miserable. I just wanted to be on my own. But when I got to the house, I noticed that the downstairs light was on, so that meant that my old landlady was still in. I didn't want to talk to her, so I'm trying to tiptoe up the stairs, but they squeak. So I'm just halfway up the stairs, and this little wizened old head pops its way around the doorway of the downstairs apartment and goes, "Hello, love." I say, "Hello, Mrs. Neck." That's her name, Mrs. Neck. "I thought you'd be out tonight." She says, "No, love, they've all gone for a medieval banquet down the Bleeding Wolf. I don't like those medieval banquets. They just put raisins on your beef burger and charge you a £5. Oh, all right. Anyway, she invites me in for a cup of tea. She says, "You know, do you want to see the new year in with me?" It's still not midnight, so I like Mrs. Neck, actually. I'm very fond of it. So even though I want to be on my own, I think, yeah, bugger it, go down, you know? And so I do. Now, Mrs. Neck is like this cartoon old lady from Lancashire, you know? She's got the fluffy slippers, the flowery dress, the headscarf. The only strange thing about her, really, is her shades. She wears, like, Roy Orbison glasses around the house and everywhere. Yeah. Also, I have to say, she does have a bit of a tendency to see, like, dead cats floating up the walls and go, "Aha!" and when nothing's happening. So, this is how I see in the new year. Nay, the new decade. Sitting in this little back room in the wilds of Lancashire, surrounded by framed photographs of the dead contingent of the Neck family, drinking this strange sherry with a sediment in the bottom of it, singing Old Lang Syne with me arms linked to this nice little old lady from Lancashire in jet black shades. Shortly after the stroke of midnight, Mrs. Neck turns to me and she says, "Since it's the festive season, how do you fancy a little bit of the ancient wisdom of Thoth?" She means her tarot pack, a little bit of washable magic that she bought from W.H. Smith and Bolton, and yeah, she's going to the drawer, she's getting it out. I remember these weird images, you know, the spooky Two of Swords, and the falling tower, you know, dogs howling at the moon, and this strange cross between a nice little old lady and Roy Orbison, telling me that I would bump into someone I never expected to see again. I would come into some money I never expected to, but that some of my most ambitious plans would not come off. But even that daft charade didn't cheer me up. Later that night, I excused myself. I went upstairs and I got all my books and I ripped them up. Got all my posters and I had tore them, threw them in the bin. Got my records and scratched them all, snapped them, gouged those I couldn't snap, you know. Just wanted to destroy them all the cultural artifacts in my life. It was the night I finally realized that I should stop being angry at rock stars, you know. I had no relation to them at all. I mean, they never even bloody heard of me. So, the next morning, there was a knock at the door. I went downstairs and it was Trevor. And he was really friendly. He remembered me from when he used to live around here. And he remembered how obnoxious I was all the time. He said I should come down to London and become a comedian. He actually offered me a job as the sort of stand-up comedy support act to his band. So I took it. That's what I did. That's it. I haven't got anything else to say. I didn't turn the bloody thing off, eh? That's it. The bomb ticking down. Strange foreign accent. Canoeist raped by hillbillies.
Got frame? So, tell us what it was like being a comedian.
Oh, it's sort of horrible, really. I mean, it was weird being in the comedy crowd, you know. I remember going to this Christmas party in London, and there's all these savage iconoclasts wandering around wishing each other happy Christmas. You thought, stop. You know, when I came to London in 1980, I got this flat in this really weird neighborhood called Forest Gate. It's about 200 miles from the town centre. And it's strange because all the houses were built like railway stations, and at the end of my garden there was these 5 railway lines. Goods intercity and suburban trains were thundering by day and night. Some of them so violently that they would make the needle skid across my record, you know, when I was playing my record player. But every night, at about 4 a.m., this one train would come clanking carefully past. This great heavyweight, tiptoeing miserably through the darkness in the city. You know. It took about 20 minutes to go by, and it had this ice blue light on the front. And it was carrying nuclear waste. God, it used to depress me, you know. Like, there'd be me, 4 a.m., you know, sitting up trying to think up puns on Elvis Costello's name to try and get this little fledgling career going, and Megadeth would be crawling by the window. Well, one night I had this dream that nuclear war was imminent, and when I woke up, I couldn't shake off the feeling, you know, and it went on for weeks. It got so I couldn't pass through the centre of London and see, like, all these lions on plinths and crests from around the mighty empire about how we're the best, and not to mention all the lunatics in London. There's a lot of lunatics in London. Without thinking, at any moment, this could all disappear in a sheet of flame, you know. Yeah, I had a headache for weeks, and what was even stranger was that it seemed like everyone else had the same dream. At least around that time, the CND, the Campaign for Nuclear Disarmament, went from being like 3 nostalgic woodwork teachers to like a whole army, you know. It made it very hard to be a comedian because it's like everyone was trying to disown being a member of the human race. It's like I wouldn't drop them, but I'm sure humanity as a whole would, and everything like that. So it made it very hard to kind of push into the universals that you need if you're going to do really good comedy. I mean, what's the point of satire, you know? It's to shake people up. Or they were like jelly, you know. So it's as if all the important topics were cordoned. What's this place?
Isn't it wonderful? It's one of the last of the great drive-in theaters.
No, it's sort of horrible, actually. It's sort of Let's Invade Poland style of architecture, I think.
50s.
I don't know what to say to that. There's nothing to say. I can't answer that. What do you mean? 50. When I was 50's got its dates and nothing to. I mean, you know, it's not about. I'm not kidding. You know, when I say that I want to destroy movies, it's not a joke. It's not a fun thing. You know, I mean, like, nuclear dread was a very 80s thing. You know, but that doesn't make it. I mean, good. You know, I mean, one of the main crap things in life, I think, is the dates. You know, it's just a number that somebody made up a long time ago. You know, this whole thing about it being the year 2000. Oh, maybe the world's going to end and everything like that. It's just like Hallmark invented the calendar. That's all. You know, I tell you, on New Year's Day, the year 2000, every bookstore across the country is going to have loads and loads of Nostradamus books. Boom, on sale. Take them away, please. We don't want them. Take them away. I don't. Can we move on now? I think I'd like to go somewhere else. Sorry about that.
I don't know what set him off, but after that, things changed. He wouldn't answer our calls. He left messages.
It's me, the captain speaking. I was walking down the street the other day, you know, and this tramp came up to me and he goes, "Look at my mouth." And he had all these horribly bad teeth. He says, "I could have been bigger than Elvis, but a jealous dentist spoiled it for me." And he grabs me and he goes, "There is subtlety and subtlety, and that was neither. But it is now." Get your head around this, eh? You know what I always wanted to be? Is a customs and excise officer. That'd be great. You get your own uniform, you know, get to stand behind a desk all day. You meet famous people as they're jetting about. And if you want to, you can look up their bums. What'd you get if you cross a Jehovah's Witness with a Hell's Angel? Someone who knocks on your door and tells you to fuck off. Talk to you soon.
Look at this! This!
Here he comes. Let's go.
I'd like you to meet me at the railway crossing at 7 p.m. Bring whoever you want. That will make things clear. Victoria?
Hi.
Terry? So glad you could come. Sorry I've not been in touch. It's just that I had some things to plan, you know. Anyway, I just wanted to say that it's all right if you film me, because I'm shooting you all the time too. See, that's what I had to set up. Look. I'll be in touch.
He wouldn't let us film him as we discussed the next shoot. He wanted the public there as an independent observer to protect him from us. So we came up with the ideal gig. There was an open mic poetry slam that weekend at the press club. Phones?
Actually, since the camera's rolling, you know, you asked me before what it was like being a comedian in London in the early 80s. And so I thought I'd tell you, you know. Well, I was a support act for Trevor and the Golden Gates of Despair, who in those days were what they used to call a post-industrial band, which meant that they had this trademark sound like an industrial-strength Hoover running over a warehouse full of rats. And I only wanted to fit in, so what I would do is I would read all these postmodernist and deconstructionist texts, and I found this one called The Raw and the Cooked, The Raw and the Cooked by Claude Levi-Strauss, and he went to the Bolivian jungle and he discovered this bunch of natives there, and he came to the conclusion that if you find a cold culture, that is a culture which is cut off from any other outside influences, and boil all their stories down, you will find that they basically are about the contest between two opposites, in this case the Raw and the Cooked. Well, I thought I can do that because I am myself surrounded by a cold culture in the UK. So I got a bunch of English jokes and I analysed them all till finally I came up with deconstructed British humour being the contest between two opposites, in this case royalty and toilets. Right, so I was then in a position to tell a bunch of deconstructed British jokes. Here's one: royalty, royalty, toilets, right? Here's another one: toilets, 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 royalty, right? Well, nobody ever laughed. Nobody ever found it in the slightest bit amusing. Then one right night, Roger Harris turned up at the gig, and he said, "No, don't do it like that." He said, "Don't do it like that. There is this thing that passes between us all the time that reminds us that we are all one. And what you've got to do is you've got to, feed into that. You've got to send your spirit out into every little suburb, into every little house, and up the stairs, and into people's minds as they're sleeping. And there you can mine all their dreams and visions and desires, hopes, rages, and angers. And then in the evening on stage, you can give them back to them. You can let them discover themselves. They love it. That's what it's about, really. The whole thing is about love, right?" Well, I kind of agreed with him. I hadn't seen Roger in years and years. It was weird. But after that, on account of how I wanted to take a different direction, I grew to hate Trevor and all of his mates, particularly when we went to see this movie one night in Notting Hill Gate. Interesting movie. It was called Apocalypse Now. And it's about how if you take the mask off civilized man, then you get the horror, the horror, the horror. Well, plot-wise, it's set in Vietnam, and it's about this guy who gets hired by the army to kill Marlon Brando because the army think that Marlon Brando was gone mad. So he gets in this boat and he sails up this river for about 3 hours. I mean, you know what film people are like, I mean, if you sail up a river for 3 hours in a film these days, it's like mythic, It's like if you nick bits off another film, it's references, And if the film's too long, it's got naked bottoms in it, then it's either the director coming to terms with his own Catholicism or it's a carry-on film. But anyway, in this instance, we are into the mythic. Right? So, and finally, the guy finds Marlon Brando, and I can't remember how the conversation goes, but it goes something like this: "Excuse me, Mr. Brando, can you tell me the way to the toilet, please?" Marlon:
"You didn't come all this way to ask me the way to the toilet."
Hero of the film: "No, I came to kill you because the army think you're mad, but please, it's been a long journey and I need to freshen up." Marlon:
"Can anyone in this world really freshen up? Are you familiar with the works of T.S. Eliot?"
So, anyway, then they have this long conversation in this shed about how if you take the mask off civilized man, you get the horror, the horror, the horror. Well.
Cut.
What? No, hang about. No. Sorry, no, it's a good point, this, and I want to explain. I'm hot now. I'm ready to do it.
Save it for the club.
We're here at the Press Club where there's an open mic poetry slam happening tonight. Poets, performance artists, comedians, and the captain has promised to perform himself. It's the only thing I need to finish up my film. Okay, Terry, grab some setup shots and bring the camera up, okay?
Well, now that the arts Nazis are out of the way, I think we can perhaps do a little bit of real talking, Come this way. What was I saying before when I was so rudely interrupted? Oh, yeah, Trevor and all of his mates, right? They all loved this movie, Apocalypse Now. They're all coming out and they're going, "Oh, wow, take the mask off civilized man." They see this grumpy Asian guy who works on the box office who's overworked and underpaid, and they go, "Yeah, and take the mask off civilized man." They see these skinheads across the road and they apply the same renter conclusion to that situation as well. I'm going, no, it's not like that at all, It's not like take the mask off civilized man. It's as if somebody has parked a car on my foot and I'm going, "Ah," and you're all standing there going, "Ooh, what a weird animal cry," It's like, not that, it's like, move the car. Oh, right, yes, of course, we've got to take the car into consideration in analysing your reaction, but no, just move the car. It's for most people, it's as if they're just like this foot stamping in their face all the time. You can't call them weird, animal, horrible, revolting creatures on account of it. Maybe it's what happens to them. Anyway, I discovered politics, I suppose, belatedly. And I hate mad people But all of a sudden, this one, I think, must have come up. Sundays, in those days, London seemed to be just full of them. You know, everyone seemed to be insane. But I was looking away and I heard this voice going, "Hey, you! That's right, you! I'm talking to you! You in the Puce Packham out with the teeth like Terry Thomas! Come on, man! All I want is a light! That's all I'm asking for. What's that?" I know it's a light, but what use is a light without a bloody cigarette? Now, come on! Don't play the social worker with me, man! Give me what I need. Oh, that's great. A cigarette, that's really nice. Sorry I was a bit snappy before, you know, but without a cigarette I get edgy, you know. Ah, come on, let's be friends, eh? Come on, shake. And then I hear, ah! And then I hear, that's a great trick, that, isn't it, eh? I bet you've never seen a thumb bend back that far before, have you, eh? Come on, pal, stop screaming, will you? It'll be a bit flappy for a month or two, but it'll be right as rain in about 18 months. I'm going, oh no. So I look up, and this guy in like suede shoes with horrible bell-bottom trousers and a greasy nylon torn shirt and a smashed up, beaten up face and a combat helmet and these blazing eyes. I think, no, I can't stand it. And he goes, "Hey, you guys in a band, eh? That's great, you know, my brother, he's in a band too, he's a bass player. Which one of you guys is the bass player?" "Oh, you're the bass player. Here, come on, man, shake." Then I hear, ah! "Oh, well, come on, eh? You're not going to be playing the bass now for a month or two. Not with your thumb hanging off your hand like a turd off a baby's bum. I'll tell you what, eh? I'll phone up my brother. He's a really talented bass player. He can take your friend's place, you know? He's great. He's smart. He's got a stupid name, mind you. Sting. You might have heard of him." I thought, oh, no. Not people who are related to famous people. And off I dash, you know? And I'm walking around. I'm walking around the Westway, where there's this big street on stilts with all these cars going over the top of it, you know? And all of a sudden, I can hear this sound, this jump, jump, jump sound. And I look around and I see this giant insect eating the buildings. I'm all delighted, you know? I've longed for this sound for decades now. And there he is, this huge 50-foot insect with his giant insect mandibles slicing through the dark black concrete of the building. Huge insect tentacles punching through windows and pulling people out and snarfing them down. I'm like delighted, you know? So I go into this nearby pub. Not that I want to have a drink, but I want to score some pills, and it's a good pub for scoring pills in, you know, and I've got this sense that this cheerful apocalypse is somehow tied up with my chemical condition. So I'm walking around this pub, reeling about this pub, really, I've got to confess, and I'm like nudging people going, "Hey, mate, have you heard?" They go, "No, what?" And I go, "Oh, you'll find out," and I listen, jump out the window. And but anyway, the landlord started getting heavy with me because I wasn't buying a drink, you know, you've got to buy a drink in those places. And so I thought, I'm not going to stand for that, not tonight, of all nights. So I picked up this chair and I threw it through the window. Kind of a goofy thing to do, really. I remember saying I might have gone too far there. So I said to the assembled people with a nice placating smile, "Well, I think I'll be going now." And they grabbed a hold of me and they dragged me down onto the floor and they just kicked me round the floor, just beat the living daylights out of me, you know. And I came to later in this police cell, and there was just the two of us in there. There was me, and there was this bloke. And as soon as I heard him speak, I thought, oh no, it's him. It's like, "Hey, great to see you. I saw you earlier on arguing with that rock band there. Weird bunch of people, am I?" I'm like, oh no. Anyway, it turns out he's quite nice to me. He gave me a cigarette. He asked me how I'd got there, and I told him, you know. And he said, "Oh, that's a sad story, but as for my story, it is sadder yet. I might look to you just like a tatty-looking, pissed-up Scottish git, but it's not always been the case. I used to be a part of the human race in the big castle, loved and lazy, not as you see me now, hated, violent and crazy. I'm not even Scottish, I'm Polish. As a youth, I used to bask in the reflected glory of my incredibly talented brother Sting, but also I was the star centre-forward for my local football team, Vidziu Lodz, one of the finest and proudest clubs in Poland. It's spelt like this. My only problem was I kept shifting identity. Like one week I would be a fish, and the next week I would be a poodle from Splot, a little-known area of Cardiff, you know? And then the next week I'd turn up for match practice. I'd be a massive dirigible as part of an advertising campaign in Japan, you know? And it was interfering with my goal-scoring ability, so they let me go, you know? And then after that I just drifted. I was lots and lots of different things. I was a packet of stomach powder in rural Nigeria for a while, you know? I was there for years, I think, and nobody ever bought me, so I'm not boasting when I say this. Anyway, one day I woke up and I was a lamppost in the beautiful little market town of Ipswich in East Anglia. And the dog pissed on me, and I thought, that's it, I don't want any more of this life, you know? So I trudged down to the bus station, I locked myself in one of the cubicles there, and I left a sign on the door saying, I won't come out until you make me famous. Anyway, 2 weeks went by, and when I came out, I was Scottish. I said, that's a sad story. He says, not really, we none of us get to choose our nationality. You know, I thought about that story as I was walking home when the police let me out that morning, and I had no money because my money had been stolen when they beat me up in the pub. And I was thinking, where have I heard that story before? And then finally it occurred to me, it's the same as that poem that Roger used to be into, the Cad Gothew, the Battle of the Trees, right? Just about the same thing. I was a book, I was a candle, I was all this, you know? I thought, well, since both of these stories or poems are both about sort of being everything and losing your identity and just floating around, in a way, the fact that it was thought up twice independently by two totally different people from totally different countries sort of proves the point of that story. I thought, yeah, we are all sort of one thing, you know? It's one great amorphous thing, and that was when I got over my fear of nuclear bombs dropping in London, because I thought, no, it's just my fear of myself exploding. But at that moment, I saw the truth. I've got it written down here, actually, the truth. Oh, too fast, couldn't read it, eh? Oh, too fast, couldn't read it. Oh, too fast. Okay, I'll put it up in front of the camera slowly this time. Mind out, you might trip over something there. All right, there it is. Oh, probably the camera doesn't pick it up, eh? That's it, you see, the camera cannot pick up the truth. It can't pick up the truth, it can't. There's no way, fast or slow, it can't. But anyway, that morning I could, you know. That morning I felt as if I knew what the borderline between myself and everything else was. In fact, I could see it as like a golden bar in front of me, and I could adjust it at will. And so I did. I pushed it out gently pushed it out, this golden bar, beyond the horizon, so that everything that I could see was part of me, was inside me. And once I'd done that, then I could send my spirit out into every little house, to every little home, up the stairs, into people's ears, right into their minds. And there I could fish out the dreams, the hopes, the expectations, the joys and the rages that they were all suffering from, so that I could like throw them back in their faces, just as Roger had said before, you know. That night, I thought, tonight, this gig is going to be absolutely historic. It's going to be amazing. Like, my whole mind was this festival of ideas for the rest of the day. And I got to the gig, but then the bouncer at the gig, he takes one look at me and he goes, you're barred, you stupid Scottish bastard. I went, Scottish bastard? What you say? Oh, right, I thought, yeah, we are all one. We're all one thing. There's no difference in our... But I freaked out. Next thing I remember, I'm on the bus going back up north, you know. And I never did do that gig. And 12, 13 years, whatever, since, I've never done it.
Where the hell have you guys been? It's all set up. You ready to go?
I don't know. I wish Roger Harris was here.
You are Roger Harris. Come on.
Hey, Sheik! Ow! Punching air with fist and saying, yes.
And now, making his first public appearance in 12 years, a familiar figure around town, Roger Harris.
I just want to say that things are so horrible, if anyone told a real joke, you'd all die.
Roger Harris, ladies and gentlemen.
Too hip for the room, I guess.
Just a reminder, the Poetry Slam happens every
Bye.
Thursday of the month. You might have
Bye.
noticed the camera crew. I've been asked to inform everybody, just don't look right in the camera.
Cut.
But the thing is, with Roger, is he was not entirely wrong. I mean, in as much as he was a complete lunatic, you know. But, I mean, I'll give you an example. One of his favourite books was a collection of 12th century Welsh stories, and some of them are even older than that, called the Mabinogion, right? And one of the stories in this book is about how Bran, the Celtic death god, had his head cut off in battle, and all of his mates wanted to bury him. So they bury him in this spot, and Bran's birds were ravens. So the legend goes that there's always ravens hanging around the spot where they buried Bran. Now in later years they built the Tower of London there. So of course the legend is that there is always ravens at the Tower of London. Indeed, the legend goes on to say that should the ravens ever leave the tower, then England is doomed. It will like disappear into a sheet of flame. Now, there are ravens at the Tower of London. They are bloody chained there. Now, the implications of this are enormous in my mind. It suggests to me that in amongst all the megabillions they spend each year on like cruise missiles and nuclear submarines, they're also like slipping these two guys 15 quid a year just to kind of keep the chains up, you know, keep them fresh, stop them getting rusty, make sure the ravens stay in the tower, because no one believes it, but no one is either quite sure. To me, the point of this story is that no one knows. No one absolutely knows. No one knows.
We never saw Roger again, and the film got left unmade. She's an animator down in California now.
Thanks, honey. I'll never forget this.
So, well, there were all these cans of films just lying around. Guess I had nothing to do this winter, so, it might be illegal, or God knows even immoral to show this, but, Victoria, if you see this, you too, Roger Harris, or Captain Fish Slice, or whatever. If you don't like it, sue me.
Why did I do this? I had this dream. I was standing on these battlements, and it was night, and I could see like all the clouds sailing by. Suddenly behind me, I could hear the flapping of all these wings. Now I couldn't see any of them, but I hear these birds flying past me, leaving the tower. And it felt fucking